Another day, another healthcare blow. Another union saying it's not happy, and it's even launching ads to show that it's not happy. A big electronic workers union blasting President Obama over the law, saying he isn't delivering what he promised. Liz MacDonald, Adam Lashinsky, and Sabrina Schaeffer here to clash it out. Liz, not a good way to end an already tough week for the healthcare law.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. The unions, this is a huge deal. The unions were out in force to support health reform. And now we've got unions in retail, construction, transportation, even firefighters stepping up and saying, hey, wait a second, we're going to break ranks because we did the math and we see that health reform is driving up our insurance costs because it will have to cover pre-existing conditions, all sorts of things. And the other thing, the two things that are happening, the unions are saying, hey, to the administration, we want subsidies for our lower income workers because the costs are going up. The administration has basically said no to that, stonewalled them. The other thing, too, that's happening is the unions fear that their workers are going to be dropped from their company's insurance plans, put onto state health exchanges. So, Charles, why then would you need unions? It would obliterate the need for unions because unions do collective bargaining for health insurance. So that's also what unions fear about it.
And Sabrina, so listen, we all had to find out what was in the bill before we passed it. And now it doesn't seem like anyone's happy, but it's a shocker that unions are reacting this way.
It is and it isn't. You know, millions of Americans can expect that their employers are going to sunset their health insurance plans, and here's why. Because Obamacare states that any employer that provides employment to more than 50 workers has to provide health insurance coverage that meets that essential requirement coverage stated in the law. If they don't, they are fined $2,000 to $3,000 per worker. Well, that's not something that most companies can swallow. Maybe McDonald's can, but we already know that companies like Darden Restaurants, like Denny's, Papa John's Pizza, they're all finding ways to deal with this, whether it's cutting employees, making more employees part-time, adding surcharges to the customers. So this is a very sort of alarming thing. I think Liz is right that this was a kind of, from my perspective, a great blow to see.
Well, I got to tell you, Adam, we all kind of, saw some of the things right after it was passed. We saw a few loopholes here, a few waivers there. It always felt, though, like the unions, the president had the unions back, and maybe he doesn't. Maybe the unions are going to be at the mercy of this law like everyone else.
Well, I actually am willing to find the good news here, Charles. You know, as a journalist, sometimes you write a story and you find out that both of the sides that you wrote about hate your story, and that's the opportunity to pat yourself on the back and say you did a good job if you managed to piss off both sides. I think the fact that unions and management are upset about this legislation tells us that maybe it's accomplishing exactly what it set out to do, which I need to remind everybody, since it hasn't been said once so far, was to add tens of millions of more Americans to the rolls of people who get health insurance. Right. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. And I'm not surprised. I just have one last point to make. It shouldn't come as a surprise that people are upset about the way some of it's going to play out.
But Adam makes a good point that, in other words, everybody has to buckle up and say, hey, we're covering more of the insured. However, the president did say you get to keep your health insurance as it is, right? But that's what the unions did the math, and they said, you know what, that isn't happening for us right now. We're not liking it, and this is dangerous to the president and the Democrats ahead of the midterm elections.
And Sabrina, that's just one of many promises that were broken so far, and it's early on.
That's right, and I think Adam's getting to a point that a lot of the supporters of Obamacare are saying, you know what, the law is good, but it's being implemented poorly. I have to object. I have to say this is a fundamentally flawed law that is also being implemented poorly. I don't think that it's just a simple issue of administrative failure here.
Adam, let me just say, I will tell you this. First of all, we know there's a distinct difference between health care insurance and quality health care, or even real access to health care. But this bill was sold as something of an economic elixir as well. And after it was passed, everyone said, well, the proponents said, don't worry about the cost. It's all about the humanity of it. But it's not the humanity if it doesn't work.
I understand your point. If you say that it was sold as an economic elixir, I'm not going to disagree with you. That's never why I liked it or why I supported it. And furthermore, I don't think it's why you were against it. I think Charles, I don't know where Sabrina has been all this time. By all I mean to say, I don't know what your against this all along. I've been for it all along. I don't see this as an economic elixir. I see it as a way to get more people health insurance. Getting more people health insurance is good.
Well, I want to get more people health insurance, but I don't think that this is an efficient or effective way to do it. And I think there were lots of ways that we could have tweaked our existing health insurance system on the margins to have made some drastic improvements. And I think that this is going to be a miserable failure.
Right. Well, final word to EMAC. I'm sorry, guys. Let EMAC, you started this. Where do you think it's going to go? You think more unions are going to get upset? I mean, it feels like it's a tidal wave.
Yeah, I think they're going to get upset. There are already action plans that are offered by the University of California at Berkeley, for example, for unions to follow to say, hey, wait a second, this is what health reform is doing to your own insurance. It could drive up your own insurance coverage 5%, 10%. So when they got rejected for subsidies for low-income workers at their jobs, the union said, hey, wait a second, we got to take action.
And the bottom line, no matter how you feel about it, it has been a bad week for the new health care law. Speaking of bad weeks, the mess in Egypt. Well, Victoria's Secret models, we are not. You know, there's a new study showing out of 100 countries, we have, get this, the 94th most attractive tax system. We're right below Mexico, Egypt, Japan, and Zimbabwe. Yeah, we're not pretty. Our clash is back on the world saying our tax code is butt ugly. Liz.
We're more like the Ruth Buzzy from Laugh-In, I've decided. That's what we're more like. You know, the thing is with this ranking, I mean, we've dropped steadily since the last 2 decades. I think we're 3rd place in the ranking now. You know, here's, let me just back up. Instead of government spending...
Oh, we used to be number 3?
We used to be number 3 in the mid-90s. Instead of government spending to create jobs, why not turn the United States into a tax haven like Ireland to get that $2 trillion in corporate cash sitting overseas back here at home? And I'll tell you something, time and again, people forget that the 21st century pork barrel is the tax code because, congressmen like to, jimmy around with it to give out favors. And Congress also thinks that more tax legislation equals progress. Right. Clearly not.
You know, Adam, every politician talks about fixing the taxes and reading the tax code line by line. And it feels like the tax code gets larger and more cumbersome, and we start to fall down in rankings like this.
Well, there's 2 separate issues here. I mean, one, tax reform, great idea. Let's eliminate the loopholes. Let's eliminate these, stupid giveaways, which, by the way, might result in increasing taxes for people who aren't paying enough taxes. To Liz's idea of making us into a tax haven like Ireland, I think that's a terrible idea. I hate to break this to you. We are not a little country like Ireland or Zimbabwe, for that matter. I mean, we're the United States. Canada's not a tax haven. I mean, people pay taxes in Canada.
No. The former Soviet satellite states did it too. They did tax reform. Revenues came in, job growth went up, and economic growth went up. You've seen it across the board for the last 2 decades.
Just one quick point on that. There's no guarantee that whatever you advocated, eliminating the loopholes on corporate taxes, that all of that money would be repatriated and invested in the economy. It's a nice goal.
Well, Sabrina, I want to bring you into this because the word reform is it means different things to different people. And one thing we do know is that high taxes, at some point, the law of diminishing returns kicks in, and all we have to do is look over at our European friends to see that.
That's right, and we know that our current system is terribly complicated, that it often leads to sort of perverse choices that we're making about whether it's about working or marriage or buying a boat. I think that the idea here is that I don't know about Liz, but I kind of feel sympathetic to the flat tax idea and to Steve Forbes and the idea that we need to even things. We need to get rid of the tax favoritism. We need to be able to have a certainty to stimulate economic growth and job creation. And certainly the kind of, I think what this study shows us is that right now we're closer to those social democracies in Europe than to where we need to be here at home.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what Sabrina's saying. She's making excellent points. And I hear what Adam's saying, too. Listen, what the American people have
Adam Adam is talking about raising taxes. Isn't that?
Yeah. He's talking about raising taxes.
Steve Forbes.
No, but he's got the point about that not all $2 trillion would come home. And he also makes the point, yes, if you wipe out certain deductions. Yeah, if you wipe out certain deductions, maybe some corporations and some individuals' taxes will go up. The problem is, when you sit down and do your tax return, you feel like you're making stuff up. It is so complicated. It has made more liars out of the American people than golf. I mean, I got to say that time and again.
And Liz is right. Not only is it costing us all of this money and making us feel like we're all criminals. Do you know how much time it takes to comply with the current system? 7.6 billion hours are spent every year complying with the U.S. tax system. That is sort of unbelievable to me.
Adam?
I don't know if a flat tax is the right idea, but I completely agree with the tone of where we're going here. Yes, simplification, less cheating, less encouraging people to cheat, all of that would definitely be good.
What about lower taxes, Adam?
Like I said, I mean, you have certain entities, hedge funds, rich people pursuing expensive tax loopholes, whose taxes are too low. So they should be raised through reform, and undoubtedly other people's taxes should be lowered through reform.
You're talking about a handful of people chilling out this weekend in the Hamptons. I'm talking for the masses, for small businesses to really get the economy going. Don't you think our taxes are too high?
Yes, let's lower their taxes.
All right, let me tell you something.
We can end the week on a high point, Charles.
We are so progressive, though. In 1980, the top 5% paid 37% of all taxes, federal taxes. 1980. Now it's approaching 70%. So we are a very steeply progressive tax system in place. The problem is Congress likes to jimmy around with it too much because they get political favors and donations in exchange.
What do you think, Sabrina? Can we ever really get this thing fixed? Is anybody ever going to be serious about this?
Well, I hope so. And, I don't think it necessarily has to start in Washington. I was just home in California, where I'm from, where the state tax is over 13%. To me, I looked at my husband thinking maybe we should move out here, and he's shaking his head thinking absolutely not. I don't know how you would start a business out there. I don't know how you would sustain life out there.
Yeah.
13% is extremely high.
There's no, listen, I got to tell you, if you move to California, you better be a good actress, or he better be a good actor. Someone better have some sort of engineering degree. Hey, guys, you're all fantastic. Adam, I know you're going to the Hamptons to hang with your buddies out there. Hope you guys pay more taxes.
I wish.
Audience, thanks for watching.